So the theme of the show this evening is back to school. So we're talking about how to, I suppose learning Irish is an extracurricular activity for most of our members and most of the people watching this. So what we're talking about is being able to continue to fit it in when you return to your routine, whether that be work or study after the summertime. And I know, Emma, that you're generally trying to fit in more than one thing as well. You're studying and you're working, and not only are you studying, but you're teaching, and not only are you doing your master's, but you're generally learning some other thing, like some different language or something like that. So I expect you'll have had a fair bit of experience with this. And it affects me as well in a way. I'm just working really, I'm not studying anything, but I'm teaching both of my children Irish in two different ways for two different reasons as we go into the term. So this is something I'll be looking at as well, how to fit it all in. So there you go. So we've had a few questions in, of course. Before we go any further, you're welcome to drop your questions in. We're actually broadcasting on Facebook, then Hiadur Anocht. Yo. So we're broadcasting on Facebook Live for the first time tonight, as well as YouTube. So you can drop your questions on the theme of back to school, learning with children, extracurricular learning into the chat bar on either platform. And of course, if you want to receive notification of our future Q&As, you can also sign up for the newsletter as well. That'd be a good thing to do. So yeah, and of course, if you're watching this back at some stage in the future and you have a question that's relevant to what we're talking about tonight, you can drop your question into the comments bar. Certainly on YouTube, I check those regularly, and I'll answer your question within a week or two. Fingers crossed. I'm not sure how that's going to work on Facebook, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, Tagma. So, yeah, hi there, folks. A couple of highs there in the comments. Good to see you there, lads. So Emma, we've had a few questions come in over the last week, so maybe we'll just take one of those to get us started. So Lynn is a Grow member with Bitesize, and Lynn has this question for you, Emma. Excuse me. There we go. What do you recommend on those days when the best laid plans end up being a 10-minute window for study? Let's get you started.
Yeah, well, we all have those days. I have them most days. There's a couple of things you can do. I tried to think of a couple of things that were achievable and realistic as well, that are really 10-minute jobs. So I suppose the first thing you could do would be to, depending on the time of day, if it's in the morning, if it's in the evening, let's say it's in the evening for argument's sake now, reflect on your day and try and just build one sentence to say, you know, what you did in that day, or 2 sentences, 3 sentences, depending on how many minutes it takes you to write a sentence. If you're a beginner, it might take you a little bit longer. You might manage to write a mini paragraph, like almost like a little diary entry, but try and think of the things that you did that day, and perhaps you might find yourself looking up words that you haven't yet used. And I think it's good because it's relevant to you in your life. I always say that, you know, you should be learning vocabulary, especially when you're starting out, or if you're, you know, a long-time learner of any language, you need to know how to express yourself and explain the things that you do yourself every day. So that's one thing. Try and build a sentence or a little paragraph. Or if you didn't do much that day, maybe, and you want to practice the future tense, then you could write your plan for tomorrow. Same idea. The other thing you could do would be dates and numbers are always a thing for learners. I find anyway, my students here, numbers, you always have to come back to numbers. People are not confident. Even in my monthly reading calls on Bitesize, my Glaic Hugger Mugger, if a number comes up in the reading, you'll find some people will skip over it, or they'll kind of go, they'll say it in English. And sometimes I'll leave them off. Sometimes I'll be mean and I'll make them say it out loud, or I'll help them along the way. So you really can't get enough practice with that. So something like, what date is it today? Today is the la 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 la. And that then gets you a bit of practice with telling the date and your month and even the year as well. Yeah, Gávile sa 2023. And if you did that every day, well, you at least have 30 times that you're learning the word for August or September. And then you get to learn the numbers from 1 to 30 or 31. And if you do that every day, then, you know, you're drilling it into your head. Another idea then would be do the same thing, but with time, because then you could do that throughout the day. Cén Tauman is sé? What time is it now? Tá sé 1:00, tá sé 4 tar éis sé héan. You know, it's 1 o'clock, it's 1:15, 20 past 1, 25 past. You have 24 hours to practice that, and you could pick any time of day, and then you could split your 10 minutes up into 10 1-minute exercises instead. So I think those are, you know, if you're really busy, it's quite handy one to do, because you don't even have to write it down. You just have to have a little think about it and maybe write a note or two or look something up. And the last thing I thought of then, which would be for also on the go, would be the age-old flashcard, the good old flashcard that I made use out of them in my exams in school, and I brought them around with me. Not that I use them very often, but in an ideal world, I would have whipped them out where I had some time. So what you might do there is keep it somewhere to hand at home, or even if you're out and about, in your bag, whatever way you work. And you could put words or phrases or whatever you want to focus on. You could have different bundles of different topics and pick one whenever you'd like. And English on one side, Irish on one side, or whatever your language of choice is, and flip them around. So then you can go from Irish to English or English to Irish. So you can do the harder or the easier one. Yeah, it's often easier to read the Irish and go and translate into English, but maybe you'll read the English and try and put it into the Irish. And again, you can do that physically by writing them out, or using something like Quizlet, where you create them on the computer, and then you have them. So if you're more someone who likes to study on a laptop or a computer, or even on your phone, you have that option. But if you like a good pen and paper, then you can do the same. And again, 10 minutes, it's like having a little card game. And you could spend 10 minutes on your phone scrolling, or you could do 10 minutes of flicking through your cards. And as you learn and as you use them more and more, you might find yourself taking out some of the easy ones that weren't once easy, but now they're easy, and you're confident that you know them. So then you can keep adding to them as well. And as I said, maybe different topics if you'd like, and then maybe a general phrase book, or even if you wanted to do, I don't know, proverbs or anything really, colours. You could, the world is your oyster there with flashcards. Something that you'd like to focus on, you can just put it up there. So they're my ideas. I don't know, Ben, or they la gutsa. Do you have anything else?
Well, sin ar fad on the practical, it's all very good practical stuff. I suppose part of what we were talking about this evening as well is learning with young people. And so let's say in my own case, where I'm trying to teach Irish to my daughter, it's an extracurricular thing, because we're in Portugal. She's no longer studying Irish at school. And what she said was, I learned Portuguese first, and when I've done that, I want to learn Irish. So she's done that, fair play to her. And she wants to learn Irish so that when she goes home, she can understand what her uncles and her daddy's friends are talking about. So she's really, really motivated, really enthusiastic. I've never seen somebody so enthusiastic about learning the Irish language. But when she goes back to school, and they have like 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon day here in middle school, I know it's going to be difficult to fit it in. So what you're talking about with the flashcards and that sort of approach, I think would be a practical one for somebody who maybe speaks a bit of Irish but wants to pass it on to their children. So what I'm thinking I'll need to do is I'll just pick times of the day where we just speak Irish. So we might just speak Irish from the period where we get up to when we get into the car to go to school. So breakfast time, getting dressed, getting ready. Another day, we may just speak Irish in the car on the way. Another day, if we go, sometimes we do a bit of hurling or camogie after school, we may just speak Irish for that part. So in doing that, she'll be learning new vocabulary, she'll be learning new verbs and things like that. And it's a simple enough thing for me to do, but if your level of Irish is not that advanced, then you can kind of preempt, you can think about what you're going to need in that context, maybe the day before. And like the flashcards, you can look it up. So you'll be learning a bit yourself, but just get prepared so that you know whatever it happens to be, some utensil that you'll be using in the morning, or how to say put on the kettle, whatever it happens to be, what the Irish for a roundabout is when you're on the way to school, or whatever it happens to be. So that's the way that I will be approaching that with her. And yeah, it relates to what you're saying about using the flashcards and just learning the words for everyday things. So yeah, that'd be a useful approach for kids. Just pick a time, pick an activity, because I don't think you'll have the same success if you try and just apply it in a blanket way. I think that's too much for anybody who doesn't need to use a language on a daily basis for communication, pure and simply. Yeah. Okay. So, Cormac. So, I'll just take the next question. This is from Brian or Brian, and this one is: do you have any suggestions for people who would like to use Irish in person but do not live in Ireland? So, yeah, it depends on where you are, really, Brian or Brian. Now, you could have a look on peg.ie and see if they have a listing for a conversation group where you live. There is an address there. I had a look earlier and they didn't really have a lot. They have loads and loads in Ireland and maybe 5 or 6 in different places around the world. So what you may need to do is have a look on Facebook and different social media and see if you can find Irish language groups wherever it is that you happen to be. If you can, yeah, I suppose get in touch with people and see if there's a conversation group or a Circle Cora going on. That's probably the best way. And there are a lot of them. There's one down the road from me in Lisbon every Monday night or something in a bar in Lisbon. Then I suppose we're maybe stretching a little bit what you mean by in person, but certainly here, like, not everybody knows perhaps what Bitesize Irish is, an online learning platform. We have 3 different types of membership, and 2 of those give you the opportunity to practice conversation role play with fellow members at the same level as yourself. For our Explore members, that's available as a monthly session, and the conversations are a little bit simpler than the ones for Grow. And then for Grow, it's a weekly session on Tuesdays. And that's an hour-long session, and it gives you not only the opportunity to practice scripted conversation, but there's a bit of time there as well to have some sort of off-script chat as well with fellow members. And you also have tips on pronunciation and dialects, which is something that people always have questions on. We explain the relevant grammar that's in the conversation scripts that we're doing. And of course, you get to practice with people at your own level, and sometimes people slightly above and slightly below you can learn from. You can learn through teaching, and of course, you can always learn from people who have a little bit more Irish than yourself. They're not the only live things that we have actually on Bitesize. Emma does Cugger Mugger as well for the Grow members, which is a reading session where people go. And do you want to tell us how that works, Emma?
Yeah, so once a month, usually on a Wednesday, the second last or the last Wednesday of the month, however it works out, I pick a reading piece. Nobody knows what it is. Therefore, everyone goes in blind. No one can prep. And we do an hour of reading. So everybody in the group, if they wish, if you don't want to, they could just listen in. But most of the members would like to read a paragraph from whatever reading it is. So it could be a little piece from the newspaper, it could be a part of a novel, it could be anything and everything I pick. And then we go through a little bit of grammar, nothing too heavy. We go through the vocabulary, questions can be asked. And yeah, it's all around quite good fun. And the other thing then that's new enough to the platform is our Fáílte, which is on a Thursday night. So you technically have 2 opportunities as a Grow member per week to meet up with other members. On a Tuesday, of course, with Ben and Bio, and then Fáílte on a Thursday. Every Thursday is just for members. So neither myself or Ben or any of the other team members are there. It's done by the members themselves. They choose topics and have a chat. It's very informal. Everybody's on different levels. You're encouraged to help each other, and of course all the members on Bitesize are always very helpful and friendly, and there's never any judgment as far as I've heard. I've only heard good things of it. Yeah, and they actually, the plan was just to leave you off and talk as members, but there's been quite a good bit of feedback from it that everyone has gotten involved, and the fact that there's a topic picked in advance. So you can prep a couple of words or lines if you wanted to beforehand. It's quite nice. So you're not going into kind of a totally random chat for an hour and you don't know what's going to come up. At least there's some sort of direction, and then you kind of see where the conversation takes you throughout the hour.
Lovely stuff. So 3 opportunities there. And with the Bitesize Bio session as well, I do a video of the script, which you can watch and practice beforehand as well. So I say the lines at normal speed very slowly, so you can catch all of the different sounds, and then at normal speed again, so that you have an opportunity to kind of get to the nitty gritty of it yourself in your own time, before you actually undertake the role play with your partners on the actual live video session itself. Lovely, great. So yeah, there was a similar question in there from Jared. So Jared, I hope that covers your question as well. Jared was asking about the need to have a conversation. That can be a difficult thing to find, even parts of Ireland at times, never mind when you're abroad. So yeah, have a look, see what groups you can find in your locality, wherever it happens to be that you live in the world. And then, of course, there is the opportunity with Bitesize as well to practice regularly in a structured way. Okay. Ania, so Kesh Iverdo and Son Ditche, Emma, this is from Hattie. And Hattie says, we learn English by learning the sound of each letter of the alphabet. What is the Irish alphabet and what is the sound of each letter?
Well, good question, Hattie. Good, thank you. Well, the Irish alphabet is the same letters as you'd find in the Roman alphabet, your normal or your English alphabet, except minus a couple of letters. So you have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, L, M, N, O, P, R, S, T, U. Yeah, that's it. Nachwell. Yeah, 18 letters.
So a simpler way might be to say the ones you don't have.
Yeah, that's my second option. So minus those ones there. And of course, you have your 5 vowels, and those vowels can also have a sheena fada, or an accent, so to say, on top of them. So A would be O would be O, would be oo, yeah, I and E, and so on and so forth. Now, this is all fine when I'm just saying it like this, but this isn't going to drill into your head at all. The other thing is the consonants. It's fine to sound out the letters of the alphabet, but I'm hesitant to do that because the sound of a consonant is dictated by the vowel that's nearest to it. For example, lower and lower. It is a l sound in general, but there is a little difference there. The other thing is that there's, of course, combinations of vowels and consonants that go together. So you might have the word mála, and if you put a lenition or a séimhiú, the second one there on the ticker, you've mavála or mawala, depending on where you are. So knowing the sounds of the letters is fine, but kind of you need to learn the combinations as well. So lenition can definitely, or a séimhiú, can affect the sound of a consonant like B or V as well. So the answer, the second part to that answer then would be to use some online resources. Now we have plenty of resources on Bitesize. We have our, as a foundation member, you might be interested in the crash course, the pronunciation crash course, where there is lessons or modules or whatever you want to call it on the different things. So on the vowels, on the consonants, on lenition, so on and so forth. If you are an Explorer or a Grow member, you also have access to our Crack Irish Pronunciation course, which goes into another bit of depth. The other thing is you can use the likes of fuamina.ie, which is a nice website that will give you the pronunciation in all 3 dialects. Now, they don't just go through the alphabet. There's plenty more sounds in there, and of course, if you're familiar with the IPA or the International Phonetic Alphabet, it's quite a nice website to use.
And
but again,
isn't.
yeah. So if you're into it, it works. But I would say, even if you're not familiar with it, you can still hear the sound. They give you examples of words as well. It's not just fully in the IPA, so you can look at the word and see the highlighted letter that they're focusing on and listen to the pronunciations. I would say don't get too bogged down about learning the alphabet. You'll find that it becomes quite familiar quite quickly. And I know you think, well, of course it does, Emma. You can speak Irish. I guarantee you it does come quite quickly. I see with my students here in Germany have never seen Irish in their life. And within a couple of weeks, they're reading and they're making intelligent guesses or informed guesses on the pronunciation of something. So that would be my part. Ben, ein Rodella.
Nothing very important, just to say that we do have a couple of words with Z in them as well. Yes, so we have zoo, because if you used an S, you'd have zoo, and that'd be juice. And then we have zoom all, which is making something greater or smaller when focusing a camera. It's not when you're on Zoom having a meeting, let's say. So zoom all. There may be a few more, just to say that. Yeah, but I think Emma has it covered there, and that kind of relates to the next question that we have here from Manche. So Manche says, how do you figure out slender or broad consonants when flanked by contradicting indicator vowels? Examples: stáisiún, trénach, the N and that, Erfurt, the or and the F there, and trach, the T. So this one, Manche, there aren't that many of them, is the first thing. And where there are 2 consonants involved, a lot of the time the second one isn't affected by the preceding vowel. So where we have Erfurt, for instance, there, to me, the or is associated with the E and the F is associated with the O. And even like if we were to take a word here like hospital, the S there is not going to be affected by the O on the other side of the P. We're not going to say hospital because of the I. Now, I do know people who say hospital, but I don't think it's really because of the I. I think it's, I don't know why they do. There aren't that many of them, but some people do say hospital, but those people also say it as though there's a father on the O as well. But for the most part, I think if we have 2 consonants, then generally the consonant is going to be affected by the vowel that's closest to us. I've always been a little bit dubious about some of the notion of slender and broad consonants anyway, I must say. I mean, with R and S and T, it's quite clear. But with other letters like F, for me, it's a function of the shape of the mouth that's required in order to make the vowel sound. And you're putting that like sound on the end of that vowel or before it, and there's only really one way that you can do that, and there isn't really it's more like a force than a sound in that context for me. You can't dispute it with a thing like an S, like a double S or an SH sound. But to answer your question, yeah, there are other ways that we could look at this. There's Bitesize Irish Pronunciation Crash Course, of course. And this course goes into a fair amount of the detail associated with the sounds of consonants, whether they be slender or broad. It doesn't consider so much where you have contradicting ones, again, probably because it's not that common. But certainly it covers in a fair bit of detail what you generally encounter. And then if you really want to get into it, as Emma was saying, there's fumina.ie, where you can have a look at different sort of phonemes and different sounds, and you can look up different words. And then in terms of finding a systematic way of looking at it, there's a whole book on it called Fáílte na Gaeilge by Brian O'Rahalig, which is available from Shupper there. There's no kind of quick answer to these questions. There are a lot of different sounds and it's fairly complicated. So it's not the sort of thing that you can explain in 5 minutes exhaustively, let's say, in great detail. But certainly we have our pronunciation course, which is available to Explore and Grow members. There's another less comprehensive course that's available to our foundation level members as well, Crack Irish Pronunciation. But I think Neil's done a good job on this one, also for more advanced study. And of course, there's the book as well. Do you have anything to add to that, Emma?
No, I don't at all.
Okay. Oh, come on, Martian. Okay, so Keistich and Son O'Jen, Emma, can you recommend a dictionary? That's part one, this one. There's part two, but maybe take part one first.
Well, an age-old question, and I've the same answer, Jen, like I do for everyone, is the good old online dictionary of either changlan.ie or folklore.ie or punk.ie as Gaeilge. Changlan.ie is best if you are looking for, if you're typing in an Irish word and you receive the English. And folklore is more suited if you're typing in an English word and you get it in the Irish. Now, that doesn't mean to say that's all they do. You can use them interchangeably as well, but I find it works best that way. But Changlan has a little bit more with on folklore biog as well, which gives you Irish to Irish, which gives you a nice variety of extra vocabulary and explanations as well. And you also have the links with other dictionaries, and you have the good old grammar wizard as well. So they're based off actual books, and if you actually go on to changlan.ie or folklore.ie, you can see the dictionaries that they're based on, O'Donnell and all of those, and you can of course buy those in print as well. If you look on folklore.ie, you can see the newest English-Irish dictionary was released last year. I think it was last year already, was it, or this year? I don't know. The time has run away on me. But either way, it's actually quite cheap. If you are into a physical dictionary, you want to be able to open it up and look through it, and run your finger through and pick it out. Then it's about €30, and that's available online. And the other ones as well are, if you have a look on Shupper, the same website that Ben had earlier on as well. But yeah, I think they're the best. I don't have any other special dictionary, they function perfectly. If you are looking for a pocket dictionary, then, you know, there's plenty on the market as well, or even the little school dictionaries, but, you know, they'll just give you a one-worded answer, whereas Chonglan and Folklore, you'll be able to get a really in-depth explanation and lots of context as well. Loads of sentences where they're used in context, different, especially if you're looking in English for a phrase. You know, you look up a phrase for whatever, I don't know, that you might use in English, it can interpret that and give you the same. It's not going to be word for word. It's not going to do a Google Translate on it. It's going to give you the real phrase that would be used in Irish.
Anava. Emma. Agus Kutado, and some second part of the question is, and again, I suppose this depends on what it is you're doing, but in your opinion, Emma, how often would be good to measure progress?
Yeah, it depends what you're doing. I remember when I went abroad for my Erasmus way back when to Germany, the Erasmus program made you take an online German test wherever you were going. I was going to Germany, an online German test at the start, and again after you finished an online German test to see how you progressed. And when I did it the first time, I got A2. Quite low for someone who'd done it all through school and 3 years in university, but we'll leave that slide. And I was so looking forward. I really worked hard on my Erasmus, and I was so looking forward to taking that exam to you know, say I've gone up a level. I did it again and I got A2. I got the same. I technically, according to the online test, did the same, and I know I didn't. So it can be kind of hard to do something like that, you know, by taking a test, or, you know, even a placement test online in Irish. But if you, I find your progress shows itself sometimes and you weren't even expecting it. So take, for instance, you might read something this evening in Irish and you might have found it quite difficult. Perhaps you didn't understand 80% of it. If you are working diligently and you're, you know, you're going and you're doing your practice and looking up words and blah, 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 going out and about and trying to speak it, or, you know, practicing online, whatever you do, you might come back in 3 months' time and you might understand 10% more. So you might only misunderstand or not understand 70% of it. It could happen in 6 months. It depends on how often you're studying. Someone who's studying every day, maybe they could do a checkup once a month. Someone who's studying once a week might not do a checkup for 2 months. It's hard to rank it, I suppose, or to measure it. So my thing for you perhaps would be to pick a reading piece that you kind of find medium hard, or try and write a piece that you found a little bit difficult. You know, level up a little bit and see and challenge yourself, and see how you go with the reading. Come back to it then in a month's time, 2 months' time, again, depending on how often you're studying Irish or any language, and see if you understand a little bit more. You might remember some of the words, you might not, that's okay. And again, use this piece until you can almost understand the whole lot. Same thing with listening, you could do the same. You know, listen to a piece, pick an online listening piece or a video online that you find a little bit difficult. Come back to it in a little while and see how you get on. So I don't think there's a rule for when you should be measuring your progress. I think you should be, I think sometimes it crops up as a surprise. You might come across a word and say, oh, I know that word. I learned that last month. And then I find when you learn a new word, it pops up everywhere you go then. You keep hearing it and you keep reading it. It always happens to me with Irish and with German. And eventually is in your brain, and then these little small wins you have for yourself then to know that you are in fact improving. But there will be times where you feel like you're not improving, and that's all right. You're not the only one, and it's only when something kind of surprises you and you think, oh, I did understand that, or I understood more than I thought I would. There's your progress is measured in that sense.
Yes, thanks for that. So we just have a question here that's come in via YouTube, and I'm sorry, but I don't know how to pronounce that name, but we'll call you Brid for short. How about that? I need to take a course on lenition and eclipses, as well as the broad and slender consonants. So as we were saying, we have a course on pronunciation that I alluded to earlier, but we also have a reference pack for Bitesize Irish members as well on initial mutations. So you find what you need on our course, Initial Mutations, the reference pack. I think that's available to both Grow members and Explore members. Am I right, Emma? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So again, if you're interested in having a look at our memberships, you can find them there at bitesize.irish/memberships. And if you're interested in maybe just dipping your toe in to what we have available on our online learning platform, or doing a free course with us initially, or taking a quiz to see where it is you should start if you want to embark on a learning journey in Irish with Bitesize, then you'll find links to all of those various different resources and memberships and all the rest of it there. And of course, if you want to keep up to date on what we're doing, you can sign up to our newsletter as well there. We do have a new course coming online soon, actually. That's asking questions in Irish. That should be coming soon. That's a good one. Just getting to the looking at how to ask different types of questions in Irish, how to form questions. And that, Anias. So, Irish tá fáilte roimh, we're geshin a chur chuin, and so, YouTube no, Facebook. You're welcome to send us your questions there on YouTube and on Facebook. And again, if you're watching this Q&A in the future and you have a question that's relevant to what we're talking about this evening, then you can pop that into the comments as well, and we'll get back to you sooner or later. Okay. Now, there's a question there from Zachariah. Emma, you're studying abroad, so you may know a little bit about this. You may have encountered people who are going the other direction. I don't know the answer to this, but as we're here, his question is, for somebody who wants to study a master's in business management, is it easy to gain permanent residency in Ireland for that purpose? I don't know.
Couldn't tell you. I don't think it'd be too hard for a student. Most countries are open to taking students. I know that I have friends here in Germany and they have residency, but permanent, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. You study as a student for a while. I don't know how the process is to become a permanent resident. So, Pub Roner, I'm sorry, I can't give more information, but it might not be too difficult.
Yeah, it wouldn't be too hard to find out, I'd say. Anyway.
No.
Another question here from Breath. How vastly different is Old Irish from Modern Irish? Again, not something I know a lot about. Neil studied Old Irish. I'd say it's fairly different.
It's quite different. Knowing Modern Irish does help, definitely. But you don't need it if you just want to study Old Irish. You don't need Modern Irish. I had myself, I did a module in my bachelor, and the main module was taught through Irish, but our tutorial once a week was with another master's student who was actually only studying Old Irish and didn't have any Modern Irish, which worked out fine for him. But for me, I had one class taught through Irish and one class taught through English, and learning the two terms for everything, prototonic, deuterotonic forms, this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, it was quite tough, but I do a little bit here with my students. I do an introduction. Of course, the sentence structure is verb, subject, object, like Modern Irish. You'll see some words that you'll understand why, actually one that I found out, you'll understand why the irregular verbs are irregular. And yeah, it's complex, but it's quite nice, but it is very different in my opinion.
Presumably it's missing a lot of the long words from English and French and Latin in general. And
yeah. So it's quite different. So learning Old Irish might not help you too much with your modern Irish, but having modern Irish will help with your Old Irish. Well, it could go either way, but that's just my own humble opinion.
Anava, Gurmagat. Well, it is quite enough in terms of questions, so we might just wrap things up for this evening and this month. I'll be back with a special session next month with Gary Bannister. He'll be talking to me about the 4th edition of his thesaurus, which is a bit of a life's work. So that'll be interesting. He'll be taking questions on all sorts of things related to that. And so anyway, we'll be sending out information about that ahead of time. And as I was saying, if you want to be kept up to date, then do sign up to our newsletter and we'll keep you up to date on what it is that we're at and what will be in the newsletter and what new courses are coming online and all the rest of it. So, gur míle maithagad ar fad as sa bheith linn, agus gur maithagad sa leis Emma as sa bheith lom. Tá fáilte rót bríd. Anna fá. Tá go maith chóirte, slán go fóil go dtí an bhí se chuin.
Slán.